Hello, hello. Welcome to Unprinted Pages. I am Jenny Elliott here with my wonderful guests, Keely Messino, Tish Macwebber, and Rusty Slasher. We are going to talk about publishing, writing, and how our journeys have went. Thank you for joining us. Keely, please introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Keely Messino, as Jenny said, and um, I am a published author. I've written for several anthologies, and I have a degree in creative writing. I'm not really. Um, it's been an interesting journey. Starting with possibly a writer, a person, all the writers and artists. It's pretty awesome.
That is awesome. Okay. Uh, Tish, please introduce yourself.
Hey everybody, I write under the pen name of Tish Macwebber. I'm an indie published author. I have 2 books out right now and one coming out on August 8th in the ebook format. If I can struggle through the paperback format, I'll be close to that as well. And I also have stories in 6 different anthologies, 5 with Faye Corpse and 1 with the Coffee House Writers. Tish Creations Inc. is my business for all things creative, is the easiest way to say it, because I believe everybody has creativity inside of them. And I am here to help the world with my creativity and help you find your own.
Raz, please introduce yourself.
My name is Raz. I'm a Virgo. I like long walks through the woods where no one can hear you scream, and turtles.
You have a favorite type of turtle.
No, just turtles. Just any turtles will do.
What about
okay.
Ninja Turtles?
Oh, especially Ninja Turtles. I'm going Ninja Turtles. I love Michelangelo, but I'm a big Raphael fan.
They just put the 2003 series out, able to buy and watch the whole thing. I am excited.
I like the 2003, but like the original cartoons, man. Like I had the sleeping bag, the roller skates from when I was a kid of those, like the classics.
Oh, I
Back when you
have
used to be
all
able to buy them at
those.
Burger King.
And we've watched all of them over and over again now to corrupt
Yeah.
the kids with all the others.
You know, the new movie's coming out. They're doing this big special event at the end of the month, the last weekend of the month, actually, where if you go to it, you get like a brand new comic book and like all this swag stuff they're doing for the fan experience. It looks really cool. It's the one that Seth Rogen had a part in making, where they're like a lot younger.
That is awesomeness. So, I guess let's get right to it. How did you guys get to the publishing place you are? What got you started with inquiring? I guess, Tish, please start us off.
Okay. So when I was in high school, I had a teacher for English, and because we had to dissect what we were reading and find the hidden meaning behind everything and go really deep into it, I lost the enjoyment for writing for a while. Fast forward to being done in school, working, and running a day-to-day shift in a call center really kind of dragged me down a bit. And I'm in the city with my husband and only friends, no family here. One of my friends got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And she had been involved with, jazzy sighting might happen, my cat is here. She had been involved with NaNoWriMo for years. She was a local ML in it. And she was really a huge believer in me and my skills. And she wanted me to write a book. I wasn't sure. I was a little, nervous about it. So I started exploring with my song lyrics. I wanted to put them in a blog. And when I started asking about how to set up a blog, the person I was asking online asked me, "Why do you want to blog if you're not going to blog?" That's my cat's tail. And so I had never thought of it before. And that's kind of where I got my feet wet with writing. I wanted to see if it was something I could stick with once I decided to start it. And the blog grew to be large enough, although it's a little out of my reach right now because there's a lot of stuff happening behind the scenes. But it's there. You can still read it and everything. But I haven't been actively blogging in a while. I've been working on several other projects, and once I got my feet wet, my friend did pass away, and she was well known for saying that every book should have at least one talking cat in it. So I wrote a book in her memory where all the cats are narrating the story. And I've written in her because a lot of the characters in the book are on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge. So I've written in her with 2 chapters with her pets because she was the inspiration for the book and she was the reason I decided to go ahead and jump in. And I've gotten a lot of good results. In fact, a couple of years after it was published in 2022, because I published in 2017, I decided to give a run for Amazon bestseller, and it peaked at number 22. So I was really pleased with that. And it was kind of cool, 22 and 22. I have since not stopped writing, even though there are lulls, of course. When I get focused on something, I go all in, and then when I come up for air, I either find something else to do or, jump back in. And currently, I'm writing Drop the Red Pen, How to Write a Book in 30 Days. That's going to come out in August. I have a standalone fiction book that I'm working on, that I'm researching right now. And I am aiming for my fantasy trilogy, which I have briefly started. The Story Candy and the Coffee House Writers fiction anthology is going to be featured in it. And I have high hopes, but I also have to do a lot of character development before I really get into it. I'm not a real planner, I'm more of a plantser. I'm leaning into planning from the pantser area. So the more I work on different projects, the more I get a little bit more thought put into before I start, where am I going with this? And things do develop over the time that I work on them. And to circle back around to that first book, I'm involved with creating a virtual space. If you follow me on social media under Tish Weber, you may see me post my virtual office and different spaces online. And I'm currently creating a space based on my first book as the cottage by the sea on the other side of the Rainbow Bridge where all my cats are waiting for me. And that's the theme for that space. And it's getting close to being finished. I've taken the liberty of adding a couple of gifs of some quite famous cats, Grumpy Cat and Little Bub, 2 of them. There's a DJ cat in there, and I don't know if you watch The Kiffness, but there's this one cat that does the head thing, the white cat. So I've got those 4 cats already in the space. I'll be adding in my book trailer, which is very campy, but it was the first one I ever made. And with that, I've decided that because it is in line with the book, fictionally, chapter 10, I'm going to read chapter 10 on a YouTube video and have that available in the space as something else for people to experience when they visit. And the big dream goal here is to invite other authors to come play with us and create their own virtual book worlds.
Very cool.
So it's a lot
That
of
is
fun.
amazing. How about you, Keely?
So basically, how I started writing, my grandmother, I was very, very tore up, but I decided to just read about her journey and the perspective of, going to heaven. And so that was a therapeutic thing. And there's also a bit of an ego boost because everybody wanted to read it. And of course, over the years, it became this, my escape. I read Harry Potter and Little House on the Prairie. I was in hospital a lot as a kid. So you learn to, escape that reality when you go into your own world. Well, then I thought I'll make my own. And so started writing all the time. And then I went to college for a little while. Ironically enough, I was going to be a counselor. And I did not want to be a counselor. I didn't work as a clinician. So I wound up deciding like senior year that I was getting a BA in writing, and then all of a sudden that just opened. I know Trish through popular writers, so written for them. I found them through Southern New Hampshire University, and I've been part of that team for a long time. And then Patty through Coffee House, and we've all I really just being able to create one mind isn't what I want to do. Like having control, the freedom, expression, the freedom of anything that you want. And like I said, you can find me on Coffee House Writers. Actually haven't written for them in quite a while, but for health reasons. But now I am intending to publish a book soon of my own, actually a romance novel, which is out of my comfort zone. For Fate Corpse, I've written 4 stories that have been published in anthologies. They all have a lot of sexual and provocative elements, but nothing like that. And then I've written for popular writers. I wrote an anthology as well. So that's essentially what now I'm trying to branch out in my writing and explore more possibilities.
Nice. I actually have a question for you.
That is awesome.
Did you say you did previously attend, or you're currently attending SNHU?
So I am not attending right now. I got a degree in creative writing. I got a BA in creative writing in 2018, and then I got my master's in online communications, digital communications, a couple years ago.
Okay. I'm pretty sure you and I took some classes together because
Yeah, I
I was
remember
getting my BA at the same time you were, but under my real name. And I had someone named Keely in a couple of my classes, and I've never met anyone
Yeah.
but you with that name. So there's a
Yes,
very
it
good
was
chance we
me.
shared a couple of classes together.
It was
I'm actually doing my
me.
master's.
Hello again.
I'm a little over halfway through my master's with them right now.
That's amazing.
We're still for creative writing, yeah. That's really cool, man.
Bachelor of Science.
Hell yeah. I have
That
one of
rocks.
I have
Mine
one of
has
those in the
nothing
medical
to do
field.
with-
And I love that you said you're a planter
Why
because
is
I don't meet many other planter writers, and I'm 100% a planter.
Yeah. I could
I'm a
probably
pantser, there's no way.
I could drop a book on a post-it note and be happy with it and start from there.
I come up with weird ideas. Like sometimes when I started writing the trilogy I'm writing right now, initially the whole concept was, okay, well, this is what it's about, but here's the ending. Here's the ending of the entire trilogy, which was the first thing I ever planned. And then that just kind of sparked the whole thing. I've just been writing towards that ending pretty much ever since.
Well, that's really good. I know I once spoke with an author at a book signing, a Canadian author, Kelly Armstrong, and when I went to her book reading, I was basically one of the few people who was brave enough to ask like 50 billion questions. And one of the questions I had was, I want to write a fantasy trilogy, but I'm not sure how to tackle book 2. Because I know in the beginning you're doing character development and then your story arc finishes in book 3, but I wasn't really sure what to do with book 2. And she said, "Oh, that's easy. That's where you have fun."
Mm-hmm.
And just hearing that perspective of how to approach it, it actually gave me the idea of what to do in the middle after I overthought it for, a couple of years. But now it's started very briefly. Hello. And it is under character development right now because I've made an effort in my mind. What I'd like to do is not create characters based on people I know that have passed away, but I want to do a bit of a nod to friends and family who are gone and use their names only, not their character, in my book. And I do believe most of them will show up in the trilogy instead of the standalone.
That's awesome. I tend to grab, instead of like turning people into entire characters, I'll do names a lot. Like I do Jenny a lot, especially like lately for some reason. But
I've noticed.
I take strong personality quirks from people I've known, just the quirks, and then I'll write those, and I'll combine them with another friend or family member's quirk, and then I combine a couple quirks, and then I design the character that way. So that way I'm including people, but like you said, it's that little nod that if you know the person, you'll get it. Like totally.
Killed me and turned me into a monster. I feel so loved.
Oh yeah, you're a skinwalker in one story that shares beauty advice. You're a little girl who just got murdered in the book I'm writing now. Like, yeah, there's a couple Jennies. It's between you and the Jenny that plays Samantha in the Mime movie, because that Jenny and I have been friends for a long time, but it bounces forth between the Jennies.
Well, whether or not it's her or me, I just find it hilarious that I've died. So, yay.
I actually combined you both in this. I did the personality quirk thing, and I took things from both of you. Like, so you're both. Anytime there's a Jenny, it's literally both of you together.
I love that
I feel
you're
honored to be lumped with her. Me too. I find it hilarious.
That's beautiful.
What about?
I tend to kill the people I like give them the most gruesome, awesome deaths than I do the people that survive for some reason. Like the people that survive, they're just random, whatever. But like the people that I put the effort into, like the drama, the excitement, the murder, like those are the people I care about the most for some reason.
I do the opposite. Like if you were in one of my stories, it's because I don't like you. Like it's because I'm mad at you and I gotta get it out of my system, so I have to kill you.
So what I do, I give them the quickest deaths that I don't have to care too much about, because that's how little I care about those people. But killing them off is still cathartic. So that's the character who just gets their neck snapped and tossed to the side in the gutter like they didn't matter. But if they're going to take the time to kill you with a chainsaw, then you matter. Like it's the intensity of the death,
That's perfect. One story, this just made me think of it. One story that I wrote for Fake Corpse, I wrote after a breakup, and this vampire seductress creature tries to have a one-night stand so she can and the guy rebuffs her, so she basically tortures him slowly and I'm like, yes, I need to get this out of my system before so I don't make midnight phone calls and yell at you.
Raz, how did you get on the path of writing?
There was a guy in a trench coat in a parking lot, and I'm joking. I don't know.
That's how my dad got into trucking. Okay.
That's how I got into selling watches for a while. I mean, I talk about this. I've talked about aspects of it a lot, so I kind of want to probably focus on a slightly different part of it. I talked about my grandma being the storyteller who got me into storytelling, which led me to writing. My mom doing indie horror when I was a kid. That really got me into the horror aspect. But the first thing that I ever remember really writing and thinking, oh, I want to be a writer, it was elementary school of all things. And we had this amazing, for the reading teacher, because they didn't call it English and it was reading. And who decided that they wanted us to write a short story. I'd read short stories. I was reading like way advanced from all the other kids. That was sort of a family thing. And they wanted us to write the story and actually taught us how to bind it and make our own little books. Like she went like really depth into this process. So we made the binding first because she wanted us to keep it to a certain amount of pages. So we weren't had to write it on a different paper and then rewrite it once it was the right length. And so we did the bindings, we did all this really cool stuff, and then I wrote the story, and I got in trouble because it was horror, and I didn't know that that wasn't okay. There was no guidelines given because I guess they didn't expect a kid to go really far off the deep end. And my mom gets brought into school. I want to say this is second grade. This is second grade because I remember the teacher, Miss Doherty, and she liked me. She loved my family, but like she was just so shocked about this. And it was when she showed the principal that the principal freaked out. So I'm pulled out of class. I'm in the principal's office. I got no idea what's going on because I'm kind of an asshole, but mostly I'm a good kid. I got great grades. I help people. And I'm in there like half the day. My mom gets there and she's like, "What could you have possibly called me here for him? And we need to talk about this book." And my mom reads it. And I was obsessed with gremlins. So I wrote a short story about gremlins, except they were very much more murderous than what I wrote than what they were in, the original movie. And there's a scene where like my sister dies in a closet and her head rolls out under the carpet. Like there's some people at school, some friends of mine that get murdered. And they were concerned that I was thinking about murdering my sister and like friends of mine in school. My mom's like, "You do know that I work for independent horror and he's been around this all his life. And this is just an expression of art to him." "Yeah, but this isn't a purpose." My mom's like, "Why? He's exploring this in a safe environment. He's not a violent child of any kind. He never has been. He probably never will be," but she might have been wrong on that. And she just thought it was so preposterous. And she looks at me and she said, "From now on, I'm going to make you write a story, at least one or two stories every school year, just to keep you in the practice because you need to keep doing it." And said all this in front of the principal. And that was the day I was like, "Yeah, let's do that." And from then on, my mom would have me write stories. During the summertime, I'd have to write something. And then I remember, I had my own typewriter, but word processors came out when I was like, early single digits, right into my early double digits. We got these awesome word processor, and it was just mine. It was mine only. And I started writing my first novel as a kid on this thing. And it was about a serial killer that was a circus family that was abducting people under strange circumstances, like from all over the country, and they were forming like their own acting troupe. But they were called the Serial Killers. This is how juvenile it was because the Green Jelly album that has Three Little Pigs on it was called Serial Killers. And there's a song on there about Toucan Sam, like all this, like it was Son of Toucan Sam is what they call him. So in my story, these people would come in and they would murder the parents of these children, and they would leave cereal boxes behind with big red bloody X's on them. And that was like my whole concept. And it was a really dumb story. Like I had some cool scenes in it were fun, but it might have been like the dumbest and most uninformed thing I've written in my life, which is why no one will ever see it. But it was magic. And I wrote 100 pages of that, and then started a fantasy project a couple years later when I started high school and got 200 pages into it. And that was all written by hand, that one. And if there wasn't stories, there was some weird novel that was, thank God, never going to hit the light of day at any time. But from second grade on, it was just a practice that just became normal. But I don't think I professionally like really did it much until about 6 years ago. That's when I really started taking it seriously. Like not 7 years ago. And then, a lot of the trials and tribulations a lot of us have. We have a book. What do we do with it? And then if you're unlucky like I was, you get suckered in by multiple independent publishers that have all these promises. They break contracts. Then you have to take everything you've done to another publisher, and that's a whole another year process. So I should have like 1 million books out by now. But it wasn't until I found Patty and Fake, or I reconnected with Patty again, that I just kind of started spitting them out over the last 2 years. So like it's a really crazy process. Like people don't think about how hard it is. Like if you're self-publishing, it's different. There's a lot of fees you got to come up with on your own, which is, where the lure of, a publisher comes in, because you don't have all those upfront costs. But you got to find the one that you can trust, the one that is as passionate about your work as you are, man. Because otherwise, these little publishing houses open and they front load these authors. Like I've seen these houses open, hire like 30, 40 authors in their books. Like, we're going to release you, but we've taken so many people, it's now going to take 3 years. And then the whole company falls apart because they front loaded too many authors and they can't keep all their promises. And then a year later, and you've still got 2 years before your book can be released, the whole company folds and you're done. And then you got to start right over. So like that was like a crushing process that I almost didn't survive like multiple times. So like it's just a lot. You can write as much as you want, but you got to find an outlet you can trust to put it out there with.
Being an indie author, one of the things that I like about it is I have complete control. I don't control what Amazon has for rules and all that jazz, but you know, design, any decisions at all are mine, and I've tackled them all. Like I do what they tell you not to do. I do my own editing, my own formatting, I build my own book covers, I do it all. And one of the reasons is because I'm not ahead enough in the game to be able to afford a team yet.
Yeah.
And until that happens, it's all on me. I do enjoy working on anthologies, and you know, writing short stories is fun for me, especially if I can end it and people say, but I want more. That means I wrote a good short story.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you what it is about grade 2, because in grade 2, I had to draw a picture without tracing from another picture. My mother watched me do it at the kitchen table, and the next day when I brought it to school, it was done so well, the teacher accused me of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
My mom was on the phone telling her no. So I don't know what it is about grade 2.
I've actually heard a lot of weird stories, either like getting in trouble like I did, like with the horror or stuff like that, from a lot of different people involving grade 2, like a lot of people. And the only thing, because I've had this weirdly the same conversation and been asked the same question with other people, we've talked about it, and we think that grade 2 is that moment, like, you know, you had your kindergarten years where no one really gave a crap about you, especially if you were, you know, if you're older like we are back then, like if you were a kid, you're lucky you survived back then in the first place. And grade, you know, first grade, it's like, okay, you're not a kindergarten anymore. We have to actually teach you things now. But it's like the teachers, you hit grade 2 and they expect you to be a little adult all of a sudden. You have to follow 2 million more rules than you had to the year before. And it's weirdly the hardest year to transfer from. Like, you can go to any other grade, but that jump between first grade and second grade, the expectation levels of like teachers in elementary school just seem really high up there. And they're really quick to like bust you on things that you don't necessarily do wrong because they want you to do a certain thing and they want you to be a certain way. And if you're not in that box, you just, you're in trouble.
So I did a lot more reading in school than I did of writing. And, you know, back in grade 10 again, there was a teacher I'm from Canada, and we had friends from the States that would visit every summer. Very big highlight of my growing up was summers with the kids of these friends that came to visit. And one of the families had a teacher set of parents. And I can remember sharing a poem that I don't think I still have anymore. It was about either a biathlon or triathlon. And I showed it to her because she said she'd like to see what I wrote. She took it back to the States and put it in some kind of magazine contest. And so part of me really wanted to get into writing and look at English and arts and everything when I was growing up. But when I hit the old man in the sea, and you have to go behind the scenes and find all the meanings there, it took the joy out of reading for me. And it encouraged me to continue writing.
That's completely understandable, yeah. Oh, we got a new entry.
Hey guys. Sorry.
So we posed the same questions to you, Del.
Oh.
How did you get into writing and publishing?
And editing?
And editing. Oh,
yeah.
She has a similar story. It was also a guy in a trench coat in a parking lot.
Yeah. Fucking weird. He's like, you want a book, little girl? Woo. No, I actually, weird thing, my middle name, and what I publish under is Carrie Lee Sanders, Leigh. And when I was little, I started reading when I was like 3, like chapter book level kind of reading. I read all of the Chronicles of Narnia with no assistance when I was 5. I was up to The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings when I was 8. And so reading, you start writing. I don't remember learning how to read because I always knew, if that makes sense. And so I always wanted to write because I wanted to be part of this, because I couldn't get enough books, even if I read them over and over, I couldn't get enough. And so, yeah, that's what got me writing, was just so I could have more stories to have. I'm old, so we didn't have things like fanfic back then. So, and I wouldn't have had access to it anyway because there wasn't like the internet or anything.
Yep.
But yeah, and I've always been really nitpicky on the editing thing. When you were talking about before about the people though that you include in your stories and killing them off in particular, like I'd mentioned in a comment there that I've killed off Stephen Lear a couple of times, and he's been murdered like 40 times as far as I know in various different books by other people. But when I was editing, and a couple of the editing jobs I've gotten are because I'll find an author I really enjoy, and then I'll notice that they have something wrong with something. And if they're in like a KDP type of situation where it's print on demand and Kindle books, so they can actually go in and fix it, I'll contact somebody, because I would hope that somebody would do the same for me if they spotted something wrong, so that I could fix my content. And I've written to them and been like, okay, so here's a list with the page numbers, paragraphs, sentences, and everything that's wrong with your book. And I really, really like it. I just really, really think that it would be better if you fixed it. And I got to be editors for 2 people by doing that. They're just like, yeah, well, you're cheap. You just did it for free, so I'll pay you next time, but you want to be an editor? It's like, okay.
That's not a bad way to put the foot in the door.
Yeah, and one of those people, though, you were talking about, Jenny, how you'd been killed multiple times by Raz, or something. This guy, one of the ones, I'm not going to say his name, but one of the people who I've edited for, he has a bunch of different worlds that all on various Venn diagrams kind of intersect. There's like, it's kind of like the Marvel universe. There's like, we live on Earth 616, and then there's these different dimensions, but some of them have little wormholes into the others, and people can cross over. And one of the names, I'm not even gonna tell you what the real name is, James, because he's not here. I'm like, so is this James the same James that was in this and this and this? And he's like, I've had James in those. I'm like, well, they've died in all of them, but since you gave him this power, based on this church, that he can kind of, he could have come back through this. So it's like, I'm like, you killed him with a jewelry stand in this one. He was run over by a car in this one. He was decapitated in this one. And he's like, yeah, no, none of them are the same James. I just didn't realize I had a roommate in college named James, and he was a real dick. So, So every time I try to come up with somebody that I don't like, I guess I just keep calling him James. Like, yeah.
James, Jimmy, Big Jim, they're all one person. They are actually all one person in my universe. It's my dad at different stages of his life.
Yeah, this guy, he wasn't intending to at all. He just accidentally just kept killing him off. And it took me being like, dude, I'm continuity checker for you here, and I know where things are second. It's like, so there is a chance, the way they work, that if he went here with this guy and did this, and he's like, that is a great idea and a great way of going through all the backstory and all the connections to the universes. But no, that's not what happened. Although you can pretend it did, because that would be really cool. But
I don't mean to cut in randomly, and you can totally cut this out or whatever. But my phone's gonna die. Like,
okay.
I'm sorry. I talk too much. I'm sorry.
I forgot.
You just
I had like 50% battery, and apparently this eats battery. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it totally does.
So,
yeah.
If you drop, do you want to continue, or do you want to stop here?
No, it's fine. If I drop, you guys can keep going. It's totally cool.
Maybe get her to answer the next question before she disappears.
Yeah. The next question is, why have you chose? What appealed to you most about the genre? I guess it's supposed to be called, that you tend to like to write in.
again, it's the ability to make the world that I want to live in. All of everything, regardless of what I've tried to write and what I've written in, it all has this weird kind of supernatural ability. People can talk to spirits, or there's some sort of supernatural creatures. And I think it's the element that I can just create whatever I want. Again, this world is boring. Sorry, but it is. It's very boring. I'm a
Not
boring
boring to
human.
me.
I'm a boring human with a boring job and a boring life, and writing is exciting. You can't go on roller coasters and go on vacation every day, so if you can make anything you want, you might as well.
Oh yeah, that totally rocks.
That's the simplest answer I can give you. I can make anything I want anytime. I can also destroy it, which is great.
Very true.
I'm a firm believer
long
that
as
there
it
is no
works for
such
the
thing as
plot.
boring, because even in like normal jobs and stuff, extraordinary things or odd things can still happen even in the most, perceivably boring environments. Like you just have to like be open to it and look for it to amuse yourself to kind of get through your day. And like you'd be
Yeah.
surprised what magic actually happens on a daily basis, man.
I'm very intrigued, and I also want you to write a story about this, and I want to write one too.
Nice.
I have not picked a genre. I am multifaceted, multi-passionate, and multi-genre. So my first book is a memoir narrated by cats, which is not an actual category on Amazon. Memoirs cannot be fictional, according to Amazon. I debunked that pretty quick.
I've read some too, like actual memoirs, like from famous people that you find out later were just entirely made up for entertainment purposes.
Yeah.
And biopics, it's a thing for that now. Ever since the Weird Al biopic that came out, like now those are spoofable, and like like people are accepting that now too.
Somewhere I have the I Can Pee on This and Other Poetry by Cats book, like right over on my stack here. I can't.
Someone gave me that book.
I love the title.
I love that.
My second book is an inspirational self-help book, and it's called Tishbration, The Art of Surprising Yourself. That is just meant to inspire people to push outside your comfort zone, to surprise yourself with what you can do if you really try. It's the whole premise behind that concept and book. And more people need to get their eyes on it, because I know it'll help some people. But this new book is a how-to book, which is completely different from the other two. It's how to write a book in 30 days. And I'm starting I've called it the Red Pen series. Spoiler alert, the next book is Pick Up the Red Pen, how to edit your book. Take it to the next level.
I love that.
That is awesome.
I definitely need a self-editing book. Editing is not my strong suit, so I'll probably check that out.
It's the hardest part if you are doing it yourself, to make sure that you aren't being too hard on yourself.
I am a self-editor too. Like, my brain puts things there that shouldn't be there, like sentence-wise. People be like, "Oh, well, you did this wrong," but I thought I was reading it back, so I definitely need that.
Yeah, it's one thing to want to do it, but I found, and I do completely blame soap operas for this, but I found that I can follow a story that's going in a lot of directions at the same time. But I also tend to write not in a continual order, and I've learned how to edit my own work. This doesn't go here, it goes there. That just, and that's something that I found that I'm good at. If somebody has loose ends, I can find a way to tie off a nice bow on the story. And that's something that I can do. And I had a rough start with editing for a family member, but it took a long time because it was really just hard on my head. But once I got through that, and I've started editing for other authors, and I found I'm enjoying the stories, which helps. If you love to read and you pick up editing, it's something that can be complementary to what you're already doing.
Oh yeah.
And it also expands your horizon because you can read different genres as well.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you're working on your own craft.
That I definitely.
Definitely.
Sorry, I dropped out. Please continue.
Oh, no, go. Is your show, lady?
I definitely. Okay. I definitely recommend checking out her books, and definitely all types of books like hers. You can only learn to get better, but also take what helps you more out of all of it, and it's still worth having. And I guess please continue, Delphine.
Oh, no, I was just, when you're talking about editing brings you into different genres that you can then feel more comfortable writing with because you're kind of fixing what people are doing here and there. Um, I One of the best things I ever did was hop on as an editor for somebody who did historical fiction. And he was writing, because I love history, and I just had never thought about, oh, that'd be a fun thing to do, because it's like, yeah, but history's already written. And it's like, oh, but you can sneak in all these other little things with characters who observe that, but this is their story. They might even be somebody who's somewhat known about, but nobody was there to record every single thing that was said. So you can pop in and add to it and give it all the gravitas and the swear that way that you want. It was incredibly fun. The problem I found with that, um, in this in particular, he wrote a lot of battle scenes, and it was back in like the Germanic tribe period still, and so he would have these like pages and pages and pages of battles going on. It was like every aspect of this person making it, from like where they start getting in, breaking into, climbing over, walls and stuff. And you have to keep track of the fight scenes and see, okay, this person dropped down here and he was injured and loaded into the back of a truck, or not truck, a wagon. And this person did this. Okay, this guy, he was using his shield and it broke, so he discarded that as charging with an axe right now. And this guy did this. And then eventually you get like 4 page later, and the guy who was in the back of the wagon is riding a horse suddenly.
Mhm.
And the person who broke their shield ends the whole entire fight scene by knocking someone off the side of the I can't even remember what they're called.
Trench, ravine,
It's the top of the castle, like the parapets or whatever. I can't remember in the thing what it was exactly called, but he knocked him off of that with the shield. And so I'm like, okay, first of all, got to do this. But it taught me how much you have to pay attention when you're writing anything in that style, because it's so easy to lose stuff. And I'm finally just like, okay, so he needs to get a shield at some point. This guy needs to not be on a horse. And this lady's been pregnant for 3 years, by the way, just so you know. And so these are some of my notes for you. Do you want me to just have him grab a shield somewhere? I can just throw that in there and fix that part for you. And he's just like, if you could, that'd be great. So it's like, I wrote a whole sentence in this besides just editing it. I got so-and-so to get their shield from a dead man. Yay.
Yeah, one of the editing jobs I had recently, it was a nice surprise to find out that she asked for, a little summary of the book because I worked on it. And it was nice to find out that it was on the back cover.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So the excerpt.
That's one of my goals. I would like to be a blurb at some point.
You have to be very careful with your wording because you want to make someone pick it up to read, but not tell them the story. It's
right.
A whole little, tiny little package all by itself.
Yeah. I'd forgotten that we were talking about how it turned you into being able to write about other genres. I've always been horror. Just everything has always been horror. But after reading the historical fiction, it's still kind of horror, but Raz is familiar with my Lady Elizabeth Bathory stories they're set in this weird combined universe we all had, where it's this hotel that exists throughout time. So I basically just gave her a TARDIS, but I have her going
to
around.
The Hotel Nandemont.
Yes. So I had the Lady Elizabeth Bathory show up and kind of altered her a little bit, made her a witch with blood powers. But she goes through and is like, Oh, as long as she's there, she gets to learn things, so she can practice languages and stuff. And like, she goes to meet Vlad Tepes. She goes and is preparing to meet Rasputin in the next edition that she comes out in. And so it's like I get to have a lot of fun with history by pulling in different historical characters from all different times and having a real reason why they can do that. And oh my God, it's just like I can explore history. I get to put them together. Yay!
I still think you need to pick that back up, and we need to do like this little side project. Because I know for that, I was playing the PR guy, the guy that does all the commercials, and actually made actual physical commercials you can go and watch for this place. My character, he had been the same and looked pretty much the same since the hotel opened, but his memories get wiped every so often, so he has no idea how long he's been alive or how long he's actually worked there, because new memories get implanted in his head based on whatever decade it is. So he'll think that he just became the PR guy or whatever, the manager kind of at the beginning of that decade. So all the way he writes and the way I do the videos is different from decade to decade. And that was like the one character that that Elizabeth kind of knew, but he never really knew her. Like he really didn't remember or know anyone. So we should like take those two characters and like do something like with that.
Yeah, we need to talk to the people who did it because I wasn't the most prolific writer on it, but I created a lot of. They'd started off with a rule of these are some of the items that are straight up lore. The busboy is always mute. The bartender always wears a surgeon's mask for some reason, and this and this and this and this. And so we'd follow it, but like in her decade or in her generation, it was like about a 6-year difference between when she would have been going there to when they started wearing plague masks more frequently. But I went ahead and put the bartender because when you enter, you're in kind of an era of when you would an area where you are, but you can travel around in it. So it was really fun. But then everything went crazy with COVID, and I used that as an excuse because I'm like, okay, so she couldn't be attending because she wouldn't have all the vaccinations. So the hotel is closed to her during the time that COVID is running. So she can't actually post anything because she's unable to go into that iteration of the hotel.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It was a cool project, man.
It was very fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. My kids have this book series that we found where each book is a different big thing in history. And it's a kid going through the experiences that you can have at that point during that point in history. And I thought that was a great way to get them interested in learning more about history.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'd say, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm going to need to get your book because I have all the ideas and I can't make them go from here to here.
Oh, yeah.
They just never come out. So getting an encouragement on and this is how to actually make your fingers work and communicate with your brain. This is how you do it.
That'd be awesome.
Tish and Todd Nertic Tinker's books are amazing to have when you're going through and writing and editing and building your world. I definitely recommend both hers and his world building book to help move forward. It may be stuff you already know, maybe not, but they're great.
I'll be picking them up.
It's going to be interesting to develop this red pen series because I'm not sure what you do besides drop it and pick it up. I haven't decided what happens outside of those yet.
Well, there's always passing it on. There's always throwing it and seeing who catches it. Using that as what you may see others do or whatever. It's all in how your imagination works.
I think.
And I guess, you think?
I think the next one's going to be throwing it up in the air and seeing it stick in the ceiling. How to come up with ideas.
Oh my God. Wait.
That works.
I'm going to talk over again. I'm sorry. I'm totally... Redatosker got a home for my mom. Squirreling out here. But we had in Sunday school class, they had that foam ceiling stuff when I was in high school, and like there was one kid who threw up every single pencil, and they have no idea how they didn't notice, and they must have gone through like a box of pencils a week, and like we finally look up, and they're like 100 pencils stuck to the ceiling of where the confirmation classroom was. It was just like, oh my God, how do they not see that? Because nobody ever looks up.
Yeah.
You just,
No.
but like, you gotta wait. He'd just be sitting there with one, and like the person would turn over to write something, and he'd like grab another one. Sorry.
Oh yeah.
That's a great idea, though. Throw it up and see where it goes.
Yeah.
Does it eat?
And see what sticks.
Twist on the dartboard.
Okay, my next question. How do you see... Well, how do you recommend moving forward for authors? Moving forward in stories and publishing and whatever comes to your mind. What is one piece of advice you guys would give authors in moving forward?
I'd say just worry about the writing to start with, because I talked a little bit ago about, you can have a story, but it takes a while to kind of shop it around and get it out there unless you're going to self-edit. But unless you actually have that story to begin with and you tell the story you want to tell, all those steps are pointless. It doesn't matter what you plan, what you want to happen, how you see your career in the future. You got to make the time and find ways to, establish some guidelines for yourself to get that done. And some of my favorite advice for this is Stephen King's Unwriting book, because he says in the beginning that he feels kind of like a jackass. I mean, I'm paraphrasing, for even writing a book on writing in the first place, because a lot of the things in his life has changed so much that what he might have suggested at one point in time wouldn't be what he suggests now, because a writer's life is always evolving, it's always changing. And the best you can do is every time there's a change, sit down and reestablish the rules from yourself. Like if you've got a family life and the children are at least old enough, or you have, a significant other to help out, block 1 hour a day, barring emergencies, where you can have what's called the closed door policy, even if you can't actually close your door, which is that 1 hour every day that even if you don't get any writing done, you center yourself and you think about the story. Maybe you only make a little bit some notes that day, or you write 2 words. It doesn't matter. Try and at least at one point, and it doesn't even have to be at the same time every day. It could be like midnight one day, 2 o'clock in the afternoon a different day. Just every day, that 1 hour block where you can in some way inspire yourself or find some inspiration, whatever, and get a little bit more done and planned. And no matter how crazy your life is, you can always manage to find that hour somehow, somewhere, but never give that hour up. And that was like my favorite thing that he ever said, that I think has helped me more in my life than almost any other advice ever.
So to build on that, set a goal for your daily minimums. As long as you write 100 words a day, you have accomplished your goal for that day, or whatever your threshold is. And if it can be in word counts, it can be time, it can be before, whatever the routine you set up. As long as you do this much, then you've accomplished, and anything else is gravy. The other thing I would say personally for me, I've been working up the courage to write a fantasy trilogy, because it's what I love to read the most. Therefore, it's what I want to write. But I had to get some writing under my belt before I tackled it. And I wanted to feel comfortable enough with the fact that I'm creating a world. And I don't know if it's going to need a map, but it is going to involve, if you've read Candy, there is a place called the Facility. And that is something that's going to be the common thread that brings that story into this trilogy. And it's going to be it's going to be fun to let the characters play once I figure out who is who. Because right now, I think I have a dozen characters named Name Me in brackets.
I just want to say the
I
question
volunteer as a
should
name.
never. There you go. The question should never be, do I need a map? It's how can I get a map done? Because let me just tell you, like, if there is a map in the beginning of a book, I will refer back to that map every single time a location changes. And it's fun for me. And people do not do that enough. I'm actually incorporating a map into my series here soon, even though it's just a small town, because I think it's fun. And yes, on maps.
Yeah.
Pro map.
There are a lot of great programs out there online that you can use for free to design even planets. You can be like, okay, I want this size, this amount of water on the planet, this many moons, and different stuff, and it'll lay out different geographic possibilities for it, and you can just keep flipping through until you find one that you like, and then change it however you want. It's fun.
It's going to be something else to add to what I'm going to tackle. Because it's not going to be, if I can create it myself out of my head, it's going to happen.
That's awesome.
Nice.
That's gonna rock.
Oh, yeah.
What about you, Del?
The one thing I would say, and this is something kind of newer to me, it's a practice I just recently changed, is I got into a conversation once with somebody. I made a comment about writing, and one of my friends on Facebook replied back like, yeah, I really wish I could write, but I'm terrible, and so I can't do it. And I was just like, we all start off and we write things that we hate. It's going to happen. And then, but you just struggle through it and get and fix it and work until you get something that you write. And Ramsey Campbell actually answered back, and he was like, I wouldn't say that I've ever written anything that I hate. I've written things that could be better. So I shelved them and I will wait. And he's currently working on stuff that he started back when he was like a late teen, early 20s, and had been ideas and things that he wrote way back then that he's like, I now see them in an entirely different light, and I can take this idea and make something completely different out of it. So just anything that you write that you think is utter crap, keep it. If nothing else, you can look back and be like, wow, that was crap. I've gotten a lot better. But it might be something that brings on the next story for you, where your brain finally finds a way to use it differently in a way that it actually works.
Oh, yeah.
The good thing about taking time and pacing myself, building up to what I want to write, is that I've had the time to overthink it, so that when I'm finally ready, I'm not going to have that time ahead of me that I have to figure out what to do. It's going to be kind of planted in somewhere, entrenched somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think I've finally figured out how to use something I wrote in high school and use it in the book I'm trying to write now. So I definitely get that idea and understand how that will help. Just shelve it and use it later.
Yep.
Did you write terrible poetry in high school?
I did.
Have a character that went ahead and is writing poetry and throwing your own stuff,
I got sent to the counselor's office. They asked me to write a poetry book after my mother died.
Mm.
You can imagine the feelings you're feeling at that point. And then they sent me to the counselor's office and asked what I was planning to do with myself. I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out how to deal with my sister and this. What am I supposed to do?
Yeah, that's you tell me. Entirely unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those, how does a teenager deal with that? But anyways.
Yeah.
Back to
writing is therapy.
Ideas.
But
yeah.
Yes.
And sometimes
I guess
not.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just find out things about yourself you never knew before, even if you're writing about somebody else.
That's one of the things I love so much about writing, is because I learned something new about myself and how I feel about things. And I use it for therapy a lot too. Like All of the Sounds is Crimson, despite the weird comedy and the dark humor, I guess, the blood, the gore. It's literally, the whole trilogy is nothing but me learning how to deal with my brother's suicide. That's it. At its core, that's all that series is. But unless you've heard me say this, you'll never truly get that that's what it is until you know the details of it. But once you learn the details, the schizophrenia and everything else, then the whole series, it's like a whole other different level. And that's how I survived everything, is through short stories, books. It's good therapy, and it helps you sometimes learn both the best and the worst parts about yourself. But that's also, I mean, even learning the worst parts about yourself is a good thing.
I mean, just this summer, I'm helping clients with their books, and I formatted an ebook for the first time ever. It's live, so it worked.
Nice.
I'm finishing up the paperback and working on the cover right now for that client. And that is something that's really exciting because I've spent 10 days fighting with Word getting this paperback ready. And it's to the point now where when I export it, the format sticks. So I know it's ready for uploading.
Yeah.
It's been, and every book is the same because my brain doesn't think the way the steps are lined out.
Yeah.
I get to pagination and everything just, that's it.
Yeah,
and it's step 5. But going through the steps, and every book I've had to go back to 0, start from scratch. In especially difficult books, I take the formatting out, and even though I don't use Times New Roman, that's how I start. If I have to put it all back in a different font, so be it.
Yeah. Yep.
Managing different fonts, that's actually not a bad idea. But if you hear anything, my husband is apparently laughing at his computer in his office. But being able to fight through that, and like, I'm glad for the reminder tonight because that's what I was working on before I came in, and I actually fought through that format for the manuscript today. Finally got it so I'm ready to upload it. It's sitting there waiting for me to finalize the cover, and I have yet to tell the author I've got that far because I want it ready for her to look at. And I've told her she's been impatient, but patiently impatient. You know what that is? The anxious. Yeah. I have people that want to buy my book. When is it going to be ready? I'm like, when it's ready.
Yeah.
Because I can't magically make Word do what I need it to do when I need it to do it.
Yeah. Oops, you tabbed too many times, and here's marks all over the pagination. Oops, you hit enter too many times. You did this too many times. It's a nightmare, man. I hate it.
Suddenly your book is a walrus. Yes. You backspaced just enough times.
You said the walrus, my brain just went straight to Tusk, man.
Yeah, you're gonna have to teach me because I can get through. I've made tutorials on how to use at least like just the review pane when you're editing and go back and forth with somebody, because I had an author who just didn't know how to use it, and so he'd just make whatever corrections, and they just send me back a new one every time. So I'd be recorrecting the same things that he decided not to have corrected. And it was like, okay, we need to stay consistent on this. We need the same document every time and explain it to it. But when it comes to formatting, I'm just like, what the hell is going on here? I just put one tab in, and and now that there's on different pages, and I am double spaced, and I don't use any sans serif fonts. What the hell?
Where did that happen?
It's an adventure.
I looked at it funny. I scrolled down, and suddenly it's a new thing.
I once saved an entire thing, and it was like, I said that I was like 50, 60 pages that day. I remember the word count, but I remember saying 50, 60 pages on Word. And I opened it the next time, and it had all somehow translated into the web dings or whatever, all the symbols. And I'm like, I freaked out for an hour trying to figure out how to get my material back until my friend's like, what does it look like? I showed them. They were like, do me a favor. Go to edit, select all, and just change the font. And I did, and it was all still there. I don't know how it even happened in the first place. But yeah, I felt so dumb after an hour, just the font changed.
Yeah, no, it's... Yeah. And being me, my client doesn't see it until I'm happy with it.
Yep.
And then I hope they appreciate it, and they will appreciate the work, but I'm still expecting that there are going to be a few minor changes. There were with the ebook, and that's fine. But I need to get this done so I can get into my book and get it ready, because August is coming.
Yeah, I have to turn my current one in by August 11th, and I realized the other day that my timeline was shrinking. I wrote like the first, I don't know, 17 chapters of it, and they're not. The chapters are like, some of them were just like maybe only 600 words, like placeholders. This is what's going to happen, and
Yeah.
I was like, I've got less than a month, and I just realized this 3 days ago, and it's for Patty. So I'm like, I'm trying to. I've been busting that, just trying to get it done because I'm usually better time budgeted than that.
Yeah, I mean, and this time with this book, I've taken a step differently than before. I'm writing it in Pro Writing Aid.
Oh my God, I love Pro Writing Aid. Once I discovered that 2 years ago,
Yeah.
I actually I never have enough money at one time to buy like the permanent license. I just end up having to renew it yearly, so I do it right around Black Friday is the first time I did it. So now I get the discount when I do it every single year. And I have tried every Grammarly, every one of these that exists as a program, and it is the one that in my opinion is the most informative about my writing. And I think I've learned just as much from using that the last years than I have in college about creative writing, just formatting and everything, because it literally makes you a better writer as you write with that program.
I like it for everything but the glue and sticky index. I have trouble with that.
I kind of ignore that half the time, to be honest. I turn those off sometimes because I'm like, okay, I get that, but like 90% of what you're triggering is dialogue, and people don't talk like how you want me to format that, so we're gonna ignore that. But
Yeah.
I think my favorite thing is because I do a lot of stuff for school and creative. They've got those things you can go and change the settings, where all the feedback it gives you is based on either the genre of creative writing that you're doing, or if it's professional writing or student writing. There's all these different categories, and once you select one for each project, it's completely different advice based on what you're writing, which I really appreciate because I have to write differently in my creative than I do for school. And it's nice to have that program that recognizes that I'm doing a different style. And it's so helpful, man.
Yeah, one of the other things I do with it is it's going to come out of there, but then I'm going to run it through Grammarly, through Google and Microsoft Word to try and get as many errors as I can on my own.
Yep.
And, when it comes to two programs saying different things about the same words, then it's a judgment call. I don't sweat about it.
If I'm writing it in Word, I do the Word one first, and then I do Pro Writing Aid because Pro Writing Aid plugs into literally everything you can possibly find to write on. If I'm doing Google, I'll do the Google one first, and then Pro Writing Aid, and then I run it through the Dell editor, which is that's my third step. I'm teasing you, but I do that sometimes.
I see you. I'm a good editor. Except for myself, I don't believe in brevity and Word. Until the most recent couple copies of Word, it was like every single thing that I wrote in the old Word when I put it through the grammar checks was like, you need 500 semicolons, okay?
Oh my God, yes.
Seriously.
I had to tell it to stop picking on contractions.
Yep.
It's just like, that's just, you got to get used to it. That's how I'm writing. So just quit telling me this, because I don't want to be the semicolon queen. I'm just the very long sentence queen. So
there's another project I'm working on that it really fits over the amount of contractions. So my advice to the author was, we're going to cut them by 50%.
I've actually learned with Pro Writing Aid.
We'll cut them in half.
Yep. Pro Writing Aid is like, I haven't unchecked that yet, but like it's really crazy about every contraction bringing it up as an issue. But it has helped me realize that the flow of even just dialogue sometimes, or even just my writing style, it has helped me realize instead of can't, I can say cannot. Like, so and it seems like such simple little things. But when you look at the contractions you're using and you try out different things to make the sentence a full word, it actually changes kind of like the feel and the vibe of what you're doing in different scenes. And you start to realize, hey, yeah, that has to have a contraction. But wait, maybe this one doesn't. Maybe it sounds better without it. So it's useful, but it's also very annoying to every contraction having to go through.
But it makes you more objective about what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And going through and editing for other people too, and yourself, remembering when you're writing it that your voice as the narrator can be entirely different than the voice of each of your characters. And so that's one of the things that I find hardest when I'm editing, and I don't know about you guys, but when you're editing someone else's character's grammar. It's like, okay, this person is a highly educated person and they speak with this tone, so this little bit here does not sound right. They would not say that.
Yeah.
However, this person, yeah, he's the kind of person who would actually say aloud would of, and stuff. So and people be like, that guy said would have, that's wrong. And it's like, yeah, he's kind of an idiot, so he is wrong, but he said it, so
Yep, that's how he talks. Get over it.
yeah.
Honestly, I learned that from Stephen King more than anybody, because Stephen King was so great as a kid, like reading this stuff, even now, about capturing a character so thoroughly that he will write the craziest sentences. But if you stop and think sometimes about the, like in the dialogue, but if you stop and think for just 2 seconds about the character that's saying it, you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And you go on.
Yeah. But that's something you have to watch out now. And this is an entirely kind of different thing. But on Kindle, for example, on Amazon, anybody who is a customer that has purchased your book can complain about the usage of grammar or spelling errors and things like that, and have your book suspended, even if it was like the character saying something like that. Or we actually have problems going on right now in More Lore from the Mythos 2 because somebody objected to the spelling of they used an elder spelling of magic with a K on it instead of a C. The way they were describing the character, they project magic, and you weren't the only one. Okay. I don't think, but they were like,
I didn't even know that was a thing. But like my whole story in that is literally about a magician who combines traditional magic and old school magic, and I had to use both spellings in it on purpose to.
And it fits, but because somebody, and I'm assuming it's one of the people who was trying to, people that get very competitive over where they rank, and when those books release, they always start really high.
They do.
Stefan was really good at getting stuff up there. Like, we're like in the top 10, and so somebody will start complaining about something right away to try to get your book pulled down.
We were actually ranked above Stephen King's The Bizarre of Bad Dreams when that came out. We were ranked above it, and I about had a heart attack. I was like, what?
Yeah. And they were like, we were outranked by a Lovecraftian anthology of Lovecraft's actual stuff. Yep. But we were outranked also by a gal who, this is another thing that is very tricky and naughty business. Don't you do this. She is a very prolific author, and she writes under a bunch of different genres, but a lot of it is like romance. And she had 3 books above us, all of which were, and this was in horror anthologies. All of these 3 books were romance, complete novels, not part of even a set of novels, just 3 standalone romance novels that were outranking us in horror mythology or horror anthologies.
Yep. We would have been number 2.
And so we were sending in like, okay, if you look at, so like Stefan went through and I went through and we were looking her up, and she had books in like all these different categories ranking really high, but none of them were in the right genre. And so we wrote letter after letter after letter in to just be like, I'm sorry, but this person is in the wrong category, and because of that, it's hurting our sales.
Yeah.
So,
that was tough. Yeah.
Yeah. So don't do that. That's mean.
It is mean, man, because you're going to get more. You're going to be higher on bestseller lists, but like
we need to have the category of fictional memoirs. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I agree with that entirely. Entirely.
Yeah, it should be. Somebody on my Facebook feed, one of the authors recently got like ranked either number 1 or number 2 on like horror sibling fiction or something like that.
It was a crazy,
sketchy.
You say that too? I can't remember who it was.
Too, yeah, I can't remember, but I remember seeing it. Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I think I might have been Jeff Strand. It was like, okay, in the horror sibling fiction category. He's like, that's how to nail a category, I guess, if you don't even know what it is.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. Still don't know what category it is. Never heard of the genre, but...
Nope.
Sorry. It's just...
Oh, you're good, man. It's funny, though.
And also write
Okay,
reviews
one
if
more
you're a
thing.
reader.
Yes, please. God, man.
Yes, I agree. One of my favorite authors, Sam Student, she kept getting dinged for using the word ebon to describe something that was actually ebon colored. So she decided, since in the next book about the same people, to use it another 50, 60 times just to get the point driven home. So, well, 50, 60 more times more than she had
Sorry,
before.
what?
So, yeah.
I love it. That sounds like something I would do for
That's
Okay.
sure.
great.
Sometimes you got to drive
Hey,
that point home,
beautiful,
man.
amazing people.
How is that word
Exactly.
a dingable thing? I
Because they did
okay.
not believe it should be considered a color.
Okay, I mean,
in
I get like
describing
ebony
something.
versus ebon, but still, they're both. They work.
Yes,
Go to the
they
ebon
worked
hole.
fine, and it worked great in the book. But as before, people sometimes try to get you taken down for nonsensical things.
Yeah, I don't think
Okay.
that should be allowable. But sorry,
Same.
just my point.
You know what
Just
I think
don't
should be
buy it,
allowable?
you
Here's
know?
what pisses me off. Reading is a very solitary experience for me. I'll talk about Harry Potter and a lot of the series I love with other, readers of things that I love. But while I'm reading the book, it's my private time. And what I don't like about Kindle is that anyone has ever bought or rented that book can highlight things. So when you're
I turn
going
that
through
off.
on your Kindle, I didn't know I could turn it off. So thank you, because you just told me, and I've been dealing with this for years and had no idea it was an option.
Oh
But
yeah,
it
you just turn it
progressively
off.
irritates me, like even more in the last year or two. It's gotten worse, and people are like highlighting all this stuff, and I'm just like, okay, well, thanks a lot, because that passage would have been cool if you hadn't underlined the crap out of it.
What was the word in Moby Dick that in Heather's the girl highlighted? They highlighted in the book, or it was like one word, and they were like, "This really meant a lot to her. She was a very deep, deep girl," and stuff. And it was like, we underlined one word in Moby Dick, and it was supposed to be a joke, and then they're like, "Yeah." Do you remember that?
I do. I'm trying to remember what it was, but the whole thing, like, it's weird because Moby Dick, not even just Moby Dick, but Melville, Melville inspired that entire movie. Like, him as a person and his writing styles actually inspired that entire movie. So that's where they threw the Moby Dick thing in there. I just can't remember what it was they highlighted, because it was so just random and hilarious. Like, there was
I'm
like
gonna look it up
I
real
remember a whole
quick.
monologue. Like, there's like a monologue or something about it too. I can't remember like how it goes or anything, because it's been a while since I've seen that. It's been a long time since I've watched Heather. But there's
Okay,
I just also double checked. Apparently, there's entire like commentaries on that film, and people have written like papers on this in like the academic field about that movie and its inclusion in Moby Dick. Apparently, so I was looking up to see if I could see what highlighted, and that's what's coming up everywhere. Yeah, it's crazy. Oh, what is it?
I'm about to learn something.
It's the passages
me
that
too.
she underlines, if I remember correctly. That's like her version of a suicide note. That's why they're underlining the passages, because that's her suicide note. I just remembered that, but I still can't remember what the passages were. But yeah, definitely check that out. That's a fun one, man. It's a musical these days. It has been for a few years now.
I didn't know there was a Heather musical.
Heather's the musical. I mean, probably more than a few years. It's probably been at least 5 years that there's been one.
Dude, I've probably listened to the soundtrack of the Beetlejuice one like 15 million times. Now I
That's
should go
awesome.
find that.
There was a 90s movie made that was basically just a remake of Heather's that was more of a comedy with Rose McGowan. It was called Jawbreaker. If you've never seen
Yes.
Jawbreak, oh, I love that movie, dude. Like, I liked
I
it
loved
just
it.
as much as I like Heather's.
Okay, she is still looking.
Why is it always that song in elevators? For the longest time, like, hold music's in elevators was literally that song. So The Girl from Ipanema, I think, is the title of that song. That's all I can hear in my head during hold music.
I believe it is Eskimo is the word that was underlined.
That's the one. That's the one. It shows her underlined, but then she says she's underlining more of it for the suicide note or something like that.
Yeah, but I think that when the pastor's going over and saying she read many things and underlined a lot in this book, however, Eskimo is what really stood out for her, or something like that. Eskimo, you should all think about it.
Thanks.
I love My Dead Gay Son. That's such a good movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Squirrel moment over.
Now
When
that
researchers go wild.
Now that we have squirreled out many times and we have learned many great things, and we all know we want to read more Carrie Lee Sanders, Tish Macwebber's, Keely Messino's, and Rusty Slasher. And at some point, I will get Cynthia, and I want to get Cindy on here. My kids have questions about her children's books, and we need to do a children's book episode. But anyway,
awesome.
Onward. I'm going to go counterclockwise, and everyone's going to tell people, including you, Raz, where to find you. And there will be links, and I will add those links later at after the show, since she was awesome enough to join us. Okay.
Okay. Usually I would point. I am. You can find me at. I can be found at Delphine Galdracaca if you can spell it, which you probably can't because it has funky characters in it.
I can't.
But otherwise, you can find me at Carrie Kari Sanders Sanders. If you see a crow, that is me. Everything else is linked off of that. My author page, Owlite, stuff I do for other podcasts, my TeePublic account, everything. So that's where you can look me up, and send me messages on Facebook. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me.
Tish?
So I've just dropped my 2 links in my description there. TishMacWebber.com is my website. It is going to be renewed and put under construction this summer. So I'm starting with the book page only. The second I'm done with my client's book, that's my next project. And then I jump into my book that's coming out, because I want it ready before that book comes out. And to follow me as an author, Tish Macwebber on almost every platform. I'm there somewhere. I may not be frequently on all of them, but I do have the profile set up in a lot of places, and you can find my books on Amazon. And some of them are on Draft to Digital as well, which means they are in other locations.
You can find me most easily at rastslasher.com, or if you just have a favorite social media outlet, just type in my name. Thanks to Jenny, you can find me pretty much everywhere. You can also find me wherever toys are sold now with Kung Fu Action Grip, and possibly I may be the guy in the parking lot of the bookstore in the trench coat. So, there you go.
Thank you guys for coming. Please find me at Friday with the Librarian Blue Box, Friday Blues, a Disorganized Library, and on my main page, Jenny Elliott. And if you can't find me there, please just say something on Rusty Slasher's account or the Owlite Network account, and I can get back to you, or I will direct you to whoever you message there. Thank you all for joining us, and have a wonderful evening. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Later.
Thanks for coming.